Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
It's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 805 for the 10th of March, 2024. Richard Saunders coming to you one more time from wonderful Berkeley, California. Coming up on this week's show, yet more of the saga, the story, the ongoing tale of attacks against Susan Gerbic from Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia. The UFO group, gang, community, brigade, however you want to call them, are very unhappy, and some of them are trying to change Susan's Wikipedia page, or should I say, the Wikipedia page about Susan Gerbic. And as I keep saying, instead of just presenting good evidence for UFOs, they go out and attack the skeptics who question the evidence against UFOs. Susan Gerbic, direct from Salinas, California, to kick off this week's episode. Following that, we head back up to Oregon, where I was last week, and we talk to Kathy Rightmire and Brian Dunning from Skeptoid Media as Brian gives a talk at Bend Nerd Night, which is sort of like Skeptics in the Pub. Also included is a segment from Brian's wonderfully interesting talk, Sounds from Beyond. And if you're in that neck of the woods, I recommend you go to Bend Nerd Night. Then to round off the show, once more to the archives at Trove, where, because I was recently up there in Oregon, we look at references to Oregon and Bigfoot. Yes, Bigfoot is just everywhere. Strange I haven't seen one yet. Now, before we get stuck into the show, a couple of weeks ago I was wondering what the difference between microfilm and microfiche was. And listener Jarmo Schrader in Germany has written to me, letting me know that the difference between microfiche and microfilm, well, microfilm is on a long strip. So it's like on a reel, and you wind it through a machine. That's what I do. However, microfiche is a square of film with images arranged in a rectangular grid. Otherwise, apparently, they are much the same thing. Thank you, Jamo. I really appreciate that email, and it's nice to know you're listening all the way from Germany. But now it's time for me to run around the corner, down the hall, and have some lovely Vegemite toast in my preparation for going back to Australia. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
I think we need to think. Here's Susan Gerbic.
And joining me now on the line all the way from beautiful Salinas, California, the woman who's putting more noses out of joint than a plastic surgeon, it's Susan Gerbic. Hello, Susan.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That's me.
What have you done now? I mean, as listeners will know, you did put a lot of noses out of joints, particularly those people who write in UFOs, with your work on guerrilla skepticism, Wikipedia, editing pages as you do. And there was a flurry of upset people a couple of weeks back, and we thought that died down a bit, but apparently they've rallied their alien forces. What's going on?
They're really getting desperate or something. There's a German group that made a video. I don't know what they're saying, but it looks like it's more of the same of how dare these people write Wikipedia pages and fix the information on them, and they don't allow their UFO stuff, and I don't understand how to edit Wikipedia, but I'm gonna yell and complain about it in German, and they've joined forces now, Richard.
Yes.
They've joined forces with the Psi community, like the remote viewing and
Yes.
the out of body experience people. They're like the out of body experience people and the Psi people, the Rupert Sheldrake and those kind of people. They were really upset at me back in 2013, and they really caused a kerfluffle.
A kerfluffle.
Kerfluffle.
A big kerfluffle, yes.
Yeah, they were really upset. It was a lot of drama. It was like this, but actually a little less because it didn't have as much social media, I guess, back in 2013. So now the people who all the articles they wrote then and the people who were upset then have reached out to the UFO people, and now they're giving them guidance. They're saying, here, let me explain what's going on. And this is a long history with Susan Gerbic and the Girl of Skeptics on Wikipedia. And so now you've got the blind leading the blind.
Wow.
And this just old history being revved up. It's quite sad because they're not reaching out to me to ask questions, and they just keep accusing me of things. So at this point, well, actually, since the beginning, it doesn't matter what I say or do or what our team does or does not do. We're getting blamed for everything. So they don't care about evidence. They don't care about backing up any kind of claim that they make. Why care? It doesn't matter to them anymore. So it's a fascinating look of psychology to look at my Facebook feed where people are just like, what the heck? I'm getting hate mail now.
You are getting hate mail. In fact, what you do, and I think it's a very wise thing to do. It speaks a lot for your character. Is this ridiculous to us, laughable mail you're getting from these people? You publish it on your page, and we can all get a laugh. We can all get a look into the mindset, the thinking of these people. And I think I've asked you to gather a few examples. Do you have those handy?
Oh, I have lots of things. And I want you to use scare quotes in the word thinking.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Because I'm not 100% sure what the heck is going on with these people. So where would you like to start?
Well, I mean, just the ones I've seen in the last couple of hours have been hilarious, where people have, it looks like they're asking you about why you're editing Wikipedia or how you do it. And then when you answer them, they can't tolerate the answer.
Well, they can't respond correctly. Like I have somebody on X who's asked me a very specific question. He asked me politely. So he's one of the rare people I have actually tried to engage with. And he started off with, his name is Josh, UAP Josh.
Yep.
And he started off, can I get a statement on exactly what it is the Guerrilla Skeptics do, as well as what the criteria is for editing the pages or the info they edit? I'm attempting to rectify recent issues with Wikipedia directly, and I'm sure they'll want to hear your side. Thank you. He put an exclamation point after thank you. And I said, all right, I'll answer this one guy, because most of the people who write to me on Twitter or X, they're not very nice. So this one was very polite. So I answered him. I said, sure, Josh, we follow the rules that Wikipedia has established. They already know that. I'm sure that you, as an expert on these same rules, will have no problem explaining that to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to use the phrase Dunning-Kruger.
Okay.
Right? So then he finally responds. I mean, this takes forever. He says, unfortunately, I'm not an expert in Wikipedia's rules, but if it's true that you do follow the rules, then it appears my pathway is not towards your group, but to amending rules that allow bad faith actors to put misleading info. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. So I answer him and I said, these rules you want amended, you understand them, right? No one is allowed to post misleading information. If you can't understand that basic rule, then you're in big trouble trying to change things. If you have a specific question, please ask me and I'll do my best to explain. Okay. So then he asked me this question. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. Why does your group make sure the pages of notable figures and non-traditional fields are filled with incorrect information and a downplaying and or deletion of accomplishments? And why do they revert attempts to correct them back to the original information? Which is a couple questions.
Yes.
So I'm still very willing to answer this guy. I'm holding out hope that we can have a conversation. And I say, specifically, what page are you talking about? Because what I want to do is go in and let's get some screenshots, and I will go through and I will just go from one point to the next point and explain every little thing. I mean, I'm happy to do that. I'll make a video and send him a link to it, but he's taking his time. He hasn't given me a specific page. It's been a little over an hour now.
Yeah.
He did answer me and he says, do your team or you evaluate the sources behind the edits you make to fringe topics and associated people to see if they are known for good faith reporting and information? And additionally, do you acknowledge the difference between a skeptic and a debunker? And I don't understand, Richard. Why is he asking me the difference between a skeptic and a debunker? I asked him,
Yeah.
and we're on an hour or two now where he hasn't given me the name of the page he wants to talk about, because he obviously has one. But I responded saying, yes, of course, we evaluate the citations. There are rules on Wikipedia about what can be used as a source.
Yeah.
The difference between a skeptic and a debunker, I don't understand why that would be relevant. I said, yeah, I know the difference, but because you and I probably have different definitions of those terms, I don't know how I would answer that.
And it's strange. It's absorbing reading it in a way. And there was one posting here that I read about you, which I reposted to your own page because it was so funny, with an image of me going ha 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 ha, rolling on the floor. And this is a quote from one of these people who says in their posting, in 2024, Gerbic was outed as a ringleader of a campaign led by guerrilla skeptics on Wikipedia to cease all transparency into investigations, including AARO and Congress, into UAP, including individuals working around institutions pushing transparency. They are so far down the conspiratorial rabbit hole, and with anybody down that rabbit hole, anything that happens only furthers the conspiracy. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how plainly you say it or how transparent you are. It's irrelevant, because they know that you and probably me are part of the conspiracy to hide the truth.
It's amazing to me. I edit Wikipedia. My editing name is S. Gerbic. How much more transparent can you be? Every edit on Wikipedia is transparent. And these people, they keep writing and posting using aliases. So
yeah.
Who's transparent here? They go in and the Wikipedia page for Susan Gerbic, which is what it's not my Wikipedia page. It is a Wikipedia page with my name on it. Not that I like it or anything. I can't edit it. But I'm looking at it now, and there's all kinds of issues with somebody named James the Pilot.
And as you say, you can't change it. You can't touch it. I can't touch my wiki page, for example. It's for other people. But he went in and he made that interesting change. I suppose that's happening a lot now.
Yeah, it's happening a lot. And somebody came in right after it named The Truth You Can't Handle in all caps. And they went in and he changed the word photography, because I was a photographer. He changed the word photography to this sentence. So you're the one who keeps reducing people like journalists like Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, ! UAPs are real, and so are other people's bios, ! Where is your formal education on these subjects? ?
Susan, you are suffering the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune by people who can't shoot straight.
Well,
you like that?
Probably true. Yeah, I do like that, actually. As long as they never hit the target. But
I don't think they could. I don't think they could if they tried. We're going to keep an eye on this, because it's interesting how the forces of darkness are sort of finding allies, temporary allies, because eventually they'll fall apart because they have conflicting views anyway. Anything else coming up, Susan, that you might want to tease us about?
Oh my gosh, you guys. I have something coming out, hopefully in a week or two. It just passed the lawyer at Center for Inquiry.
Yeah.
But, I got a hold of some FOIA requests, which are Freedom of Information Act, which is looking at actual criminal documents for a psychic that I have written about multiple times. So that should be of interest to people. It'll be coming out. We were just trying to decide on a title for it today, and the lawyer said it's okay. So it's going to editorial. So maybe in a week or so, you guys will find it on skepticalinquirer.org. And if so, I think it's a big deal. And hopefully, this might be kind of the end of this person, or at least the beginning of the end. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, well, keep a skeptical eye on that. That should be very interesting indeed. And I know that you're always interested in more people from around the world being trained up to edit Wikipedia. And once again, how can people go about starting that process?
Yes, thank you so much, Richard. The majority of the people who are on my Wikipedia editing team right now are from the Skeptic Zone.
Yay.
They heard the call out and they decided they want to join up. And you're not all Australians, but outside of the United States, the biggest group we have are Australians, and even more than anybody in Europe, which is really fascinating, I think, just in itself. So I would like you to send me a private message on Facebook, because you must use Facebook. That's how we train. And I want to know your email. I want to know what languages you want to edit in. And I want to know your Wikipedia username. So you'd have to open up a user account. And if you want to keep it private and use a fake name, that's fine. I would not use your real name. I'm unique in that. I'm okay with taking the flack if there is.
Yeah.
And it takes about 4 months to train. I do all the training. We do it over Google Docs and Facebook Messenger. And you were put into a secret cabal on Facebook, and you get to interact with your peers from all over the world and make changes. Now, you don't have to work on anything contentious like vaccines or UFOs or remote viewing. You can stick to the normal pages like scientists and measles and butterflies and all kinds of stuff that needs to be done. We work on anything that has to do with science or pseudoscience. And let me tell you, there's a lot of work to be done on science. And you don't have to identify as being a member of the secret cabal. Nobody knows except for your peers. And, let's get this done. I mean, it's just ridiculous that we're still struggling with this. And it is a distraction, what's going on with these UFO people and the Bigfoot people and all that. It's a distraction.
I don't look at it so much as a distraction, Susan. I look at it as valuable information about the psychology of people, and the psychology of people on that side of the movement who are into all these things, that they would, again, and I keep coming back to this point, their worldview is that the aliens are here and the Bigfoot is real, or whatever they think. And that's how they're leading their lives. And of course, they'll attack people who don't agree with them.
You've got your hobbyists, those people who kind of indulge in it, and they go out on the weekends and they enjoy walking in the forest and having conversations with people and taking baseball bats and hitting trees to communicate and with the Bigfoots. I mean, there are those people. And then there's kind of some really out there who think Bigfoot's interdimensional and like space aliens and who can teleport. And there's a few of those. But a lot of these people it's become part of their life. It's a culture. Yes. And it's, the folklore and the stories, and they're not really open to evidence. Their evidence, they have a different definition of the word evidence, let's just say. And
they certainly do. You make a very good point.
They talk to each other about it.
One day this will make a wonderful research paper or book, if it hasn't already done so. I might look into that.
Somebody else will have to write it, but somebody wants to get in touch with me. That's great. But the whole thing is the Bigfooters, when we look at these people, we find that they're on a spectrum of belief. We can't say they're all believing that little green men are coming down and abducting people and hollowing out cows or whatever they think they're doing. I don't think all people do that. I think that they think it's kind of like a sciencey thing, kind of like flat earthers. They've got decided that they're interested in astronomy, and they're interested in some sorts of science and some sorts of math, but there's some kind of, I don't know, some kind of kink that's in their brains that's accepting things because somebody said so. And so I hear that a lot in ghost hunting too. They say, well, my friend told me this, and they would never lie. And so they're just, I don't know if the word is credulous, gullible. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to be putting these people down, but it's just as a generic, this is what I'm seeing when I'm interacting with these people, is they're taking people's word for it. And then other people, they won't accept any word they say, even if there's hard facts of evidence of it. It's quite interesting. I think there's a PhD or two out there waiting for somebody who wants to do a dissertation on this.
Well, Susan, again, you've what's the term I'm looking for? You've shaked the bushes and the birds are flying out. No, that's not the term. You've done something. You've got a bucket and a stick, and you're banging the stick in the bucket, making a lot of noise, and a lot of people are upset.
I tell you,
we're going to keep an eye on this situation.
It has been an interesting day. I feel like I've wasted a lot of hours today not doing the work that I should be doing, just because it seems like I'm getting an email or a message or a tweet or something every hour or so. I don't know if they're gathered together on the other end somewhere and they're just like, hey, you tweet to her. Okay, now you send her a Facebook. Now you send her an email. But it's been a little distracting, and I guess I should turn off social media and try to get work done.
I think so. Look, Susan, turn it off. Sit in that big comfortable chair, get some milk duds, and just don't worry about it for the rest of the night. Oh, she's got milk duds, folks. She's holding up a packet of milk duds.
And my cat's sleeping in my comfy chair, so it's not going to happen right now. But I do have a lot of work I am working on. And boy, let me tell you, there's no better time to get involved in this activism that we do. Right, Richard?
Right, Susan. Susan Gerbic, all the way there in lovely Salinas, California. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Hi everyone, this is Susan Gerbic from the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia project. We're always looking for editors from all around the world. If you think this might be something of interest to you, please reach out to me at susangerbic@yahoo.com, or you can contact me on Facebook. Please send me a friend request and send me a private message. I'd love to hear from you.
On Tuesday, the 27th of February, I had the great pleasure of going to Bend Nerd Night. It's sort of like a Skeptics in the Pub. It's in the city of Bend in Oregon. And it's a night hosted by Skeptoid Media, Brian Dunning. They have trivia, they have guest speakers. It's in the Poorhouse Grill, which is a nice location, a nice venue. And the night I went, Brian Dunning happened to be giving a talk called Sounds from Beyond. I caught up with Brian just before the event kicked off. Nerd Night in Bend. Is it for nerds? I have to wonder. There's a nerd standing right here next to me. Brian Dunning, hello. We're here at the Poorhouse.
The Poorhouse in Bend, Oregon, yes.
What's the whole deal with this Nerd Night and why are we here?
We do a once-a-month free event just for the local public. We alternate between science trivia and some sort of a presentation. You gave one.
I did.
3-4 months back.
Yep.
I'm giving one tonight. And we just kind of have any visiting scientist friends who are in town try and coordinate the dates so that they're here to give one of their little talks. And this is just something that is mission fulfillment for us as a nonprofit. We're just trying to have a little bit of a local impact.
Would you say the closest thing this is like you could compare it to would be Skeptics in the Pub?
I would call it something of a Skeptics in the Pub, yeah.
Yeah, it's relaxed, it's beer, it's nice food. You've got a wonderful room here. It's all these tables set up, it's quite spacious.
Yeah, the Poorhouse has been just a fantastic venue for us. The problem is we've completely maxed it out a couple of times now, and we might have to find a bigger place, but I hope not.
It's a good problem.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, they take good care of us here, and it's a really nice place, and it's convenient, and it's very groovy.
And what's tonight all about? What are we going? What's the presentation?
Tonight I'm giving one of my talks that I often give it at schools. It's called Sounds from Beyond. It's just kind of a bunch of mysterious sounds and what we can learn from them and why the brain interprets what it does, how it does.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to that. We're here early to set up, and I think a few beers are just about to be delivered, so we'll enjoy those and wait for the masses to arrive.
Indeed we shall.
And now here's a short excerpt from the fascinating talk that Brian gave that evening.
There's a community of people on the internet, you can find them, who believe very seriously in this. They call it backmasking. And their belief is that whatever it is that I'm saying to you now, or whatever anyone is saying, if you play it backwards, it will say what they actually meant. Here's some random dude giving a talk.
More energy and money and effort.
More energy, money, and effort. And when we play it backwards,
You're frightened, lean on me.
You're frightened, lean on me.
You're frightened, lean on me, journey home.
Lean on me, journey elm, if you don't edit it carefully. Now, brain researchers have put a lot of energy into trying to understand how this works, this whole phenomenon of why we hear human speech where there is no human speech. And the brain can fairly easily be tricked into it. And as part of this research, they've tried to find ways, let's make some sounds that will trick people into thinking that they're hearing human speech. This is a group, this is really interesting. They found a way of taking audio recordings, in this case of people actually talking, and processing it through a computer to produce just a pure sine wave, just a really weird sound that obviously does not contain any actual human speech, but still it's kind of recognizable. Listen to this one. Pardon me, this is pink noise, this is not the sine waves. I'm going to play that one more time. It was a sunny day and children were going to the park. Now, if you didn't hear it the first time, you probably heard it the second time after I prompted you with what you're expected to hear. Let's do a few more of these. So that's the sine wave version. It was a sunny day and children were going to the park. Okay, here's the next one. I'm going to play it once, then I'm going to show you the text of what's being said, then I'm going to play it again. And you may not hear it the first time, but after you've been fed what it actually says, it's going to be really obvious the second time. He was sitting at his desk in the office. Here's the next one. The police returned to the museum. Okay, one more. I have no idea what that one said, but I'm going to tell you that it said, the man read the newspaper at lunchtime. Let's hear it again. Okay, one more. The camel was kept in a cage at the zoo. Now, if you ever watch any of these ghost programs on television, and I know we all do, whenever they have an EVP recording, before they play it for the TV viewer, notice they will always, always prompt you with what they believe it says, so that when you hear it, you will hear the same thing. That's how and why these work. It's because you've been told what it's going to say. And that's why these ghost hunting shows are popular, because once you hear it, once you're told what you're going to hear, and then you hear it, and you hear those words, wow, my gosh, that's incredibly believable. So just about anything that we want to can be made to sound like human speech with the right prompting. Listen to this. I proclaim that you probably wouldn't have been able to figure all of that out unless you had the text on screen to follow. Can you guess what was making that sound? A piano? A piano, that sounds completely absurd.
Alles
is a
klar?
piano.
Wohl kaum, das lässt sich aber ganz einfach ändern.
You think about it, why not? A piano, it reproduces most of the frequencies in human hearing.
Schon erstaunlich, wie genau plötzlich die Worte der Deklaration
The German language
für einen
is not the
internationalen
piano, that's an
Gerichtshof
announcer.
gegen Umwelt.
After the event was all over and we were packing up, I caught up with Kathy Rightmire from Skeptoid. Well, what a great night that was. What a fascinating talk that Brian gave. I do like watching Brian's talk. He gives a really interesting talk about the missing cosmonauts I saw many years ago. Hello, I'm with Kathy Rightmire. Now, you, for your sins, you work at Skeptoid, don't you?
For my sins?
Yes.
I do, yes. It's actually very fun.
What's your capacity at Skeptoid?
Director of Operations and Resources, and according to the show credits, counter of tinfoil hats. Because that's very important. You don't want to run out of those.
With Brian Dunning around, this is very important indeed. And it's such a good thing, I think, to have a social opportunity for local skeptics. Come along, have a talk by Brian. But I understand that it's the trivia nights that are really successful.
We have so much fun. We alternate trivia nights with doing some kind of presentation. So, like you said, we had yours, and then we had the one we had tonight. And then every other month we do trivia. And those are getting so popular. People have so much fun, and they get really competitive. They name their own teams, and there's a couple who have come every single time, and they compete, get their table against the other table, and they argue with Brian on what the answers should be, and they ask clarifying questions, yeah, it's really a lot of fun. And I always learn. I learn all the time, which is great.
Oh, I love those sort of evenings. Now, I was just looking around for the flyer. How can people find out more about the Bend Nerd Night? Where do they go? Aha, here's the flyer over here.
Here is the flyer. They can sign up. We have a Facebook page. It's called Bend Nerds. So facebook.com/group/Bend Nerds, and just sign up, and then we will send out notices all the time about the next upcoming Nerd Night. And you can also go to our website, skeptoid.com, and sign up for our mailing list. And just click the little events, and we will send you notifications that Nerd Nights are coming.
Excellent. Folks, if you're in Central Oregon, if you know the wonderful city of Bend, come along to the Nerd Night, meet Brian Dunning, insult Brian Dunning to his face. You can't have too much of that. While we reach over to the counter here, where magically two wonderful beers have just...
Magically, they've got the best
Cheers.
beers here. Yes, very delicious.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Bend Nerd Night. A great night out, fine food, some nice beers, and always an interesting evening.
I'm Mick West. In my podcast, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, I have extended conversations with people who have been involved in conspiracy culture. I do this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's really interesting. These people have great stories about how they fell down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, what they did down there, and what it was that helped them out. Sometimes I also talk to people who investigate conspiracy theories, and they have equally fascinating stories from the other side. Secondly, I want to understand how best to prevent the spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation, which is an increasing problem in a time when alternative media is exploding. The best way to do this is to communicate effectively with the people involved, and the best way to do that is with a nice long chat. So check it out, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, tftrh.com.
Once again to go back to those pages at Trove, at trove.nla.gov.au, of course the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia. And you can access this wonderful resource no matter where you are. I know that for a fact, because right now I'm recording from the Skeptoid studios. Those of you who listen to Brian Dunning's weekly show, Skeptoid, I am in the very studio where that show is produced to bring you this week's Trove episode. And since I'm in the state of Oregon, and I look out the studio window here, the snow is falling down. It's quite a nice coverage. I think I'll look up references in the Australian newspapers to Bigfoot. I'm sure there's one just outside, and Oregon. And the first return here is from the Canberra Times, dated the 17th of May, 1977. Bigfoot, Mission, British Columbia, Monday. Australian Associated Press. A large, hairy creature, leaving 35-centimetre footprints, crossed the path of a bus near Mission yesterday morning and disappeared into the bush. The bus driver and 6 passengers told police. The reported sightings of Bigfoot was given a good credibility rating by an Oregon investigator. I wonder who that investigator was. And our next newspaper is the Papua New Guinea Post-Courier, Port Moresby, dated the 26th of October, 1973. And this is credited to Gemini, so I'm not really sure what this is. I expect it was a syndicated piece. Is missing link alive and well in the USA? For hundreds of years, people in the Pacific Northwest in the USA have reported seeing ape-like creatures roaming in the wilderness because of its extraordinary footprints. They have called the legendary animal Bigfoot. Now it has a more formal name, Sasquatch, the Canadian Indian term for half-man, half-ape beings. As in the case of the Loch Ness Monster and unidentified flying objects, no one has ever produced a body. But that does not lay the matter to rest. On the contrary, belief in the beast is greater now than ever. In modern times, the only evidence of the Sasquatch has been footprints. Woodsmen in Washington, Oregon, and Northern California reported seeing huge ape-like tracks in the mud, anywhere from 14 to 18 inches long. But Western frontiersmen had such reputations as tellers of tall tales and perpetrators of outlandish hoaxes that few believed their stories about Bigfoot. At last, a Northern Californian daily newspaper took up the cause. The Eureka Humboldt Times Standard began to print Sasquatch stories. Plaster casts of its footprints were made by several researchers at the Eureka Chamber of Commerce. But Time Standard publisher Don O'Kane was so well known as a practical joker, as well as a zealous promoter of tourism in the bailiwick of his newspaper, that his campaign to authenticate the legend was discredited by serious anthropologists. Now there has been a resurgence of interest in the mythical creature, with a rash of reported sightings. and at least one piece of photographic evidence. The latter, a 20-second movie filmed in 1967, which has been televised, shows a giant, hair-covered, ape-like human with pendulous breasts walking along a creek bed, turning at one point towards the photographer, the late Roger Patterson of Yakima, Washington. And, of course, that's a very famous film. Since the Patterson film was published, 200 or 300 new reports have been documented annually by Sasquatch hunters. The first recorded report in North America was that of President Theodore Roosevelt. Really? In the mid-1800s, which related to the story of a fur trapper who told him his partner had been killed by a two-legged great beast in a mountain valley in Idaho. Since then, thousands of Sasquatch sighting stories have come from the populace of northwest United States and Canada. They have been printed in a book entitled Sasquatch by David Green. According to these accounts, all Sasquatches do not look alike, although they all exhibit some common characteristics. They are large, hair-covered, ape-like, and walk on two legs, but they vary in color: red, black, brown, white, mottled, and the number of toes: 5, 4, 3. One researcher, writer Joe Hurd of Tucson, Arizona, who's been hunting the beast for 4 years, theorizes that the Sasquatch could be a member of the Neanderthal man segment that broke off the main species and became isolated, then failed to evolve. But why has no Sasquatch ever been captured? They are too smart, Hurd thinks. Hundreds of people flock to reported Sasquatch areas in the hopes of bagging one. They go armed with guns. A dead body would be sure proof of the creature's existence. A small farm town in Wisconsin was overwhelmed by hunters in 1966 after a, quote, hairy, man-like creature, end quote, was publicized. They were armed men with a crazed state of mind, says Hurd. They converged on the farm, a 6-pack of beer in one hand and a rifle in the other. There was a traffic problem for miles around. Police had to come in and break it up. For this reason, Hurd says he will not tell the exact locations of his finds, many of which have been made in the state of Washington. However, he will permit tapes of alleged Sasquatch noises to be heard. They were recorded in the woods near where Sasquatch were suspected to be. They are an astonishing array of whoops, screams, and hyena-type laughter. The state of Washington is beginning to take the Sasquatch theory seriously. One of its counties, Skamania, I think that is, has adopted a law levying a $10,000 fine on anyone who shoots a Sasquatch. True believers are scornful of the skepticism and hostility of the U.S. scientific community. Hurd displays a letter from the primate biology program of the Smithsonian Institute. It reads, in part, quote, "It is my professional opinion that these mysterious creatures do not exist. I respectfully submit that it is ill-advised to undertake scientific investigation of creatures which have not been demonstrated to exist, when there are many known mammals which merit far more study than they have received." End quote. Russian scientists recently analyzed the Patterson film and concluded it was not a fake. Hurd thinks he may be the first to authenticate that Sasquatches do in fact exist and are Darwin's missing link between the highest primates and man. Long ago, the American Indian believed in the Sasquatch. Every tribe has legends concerning the creature. The Yuroks of Northern California believe its function is to keep men and nature in harmony. Another tribe believes it punishes any Indian who desecrates the land. And I wonder about the authenticity of those reports there at the end. What an interesting page. It's a full page with a very funny cartoon of a giant Yeti or Sasquatch or Bigfoot holding in his hand some frightened little human. And now from the Canberra Times, hunt for Bigfoot intensifies. And this is dated on the 30th of August, 1976. By Thomas Love in Portland, Oregon. 160 kilometers west of Portland, Oregon, along the Columbia River Gorge, lies the small town of the Dalles, Dalles, which has become the center of the growing scientific hunt for Bigfoot, a legendary, hairy, man-like creature. And apologies to people in that place if I've mispronounced that. I'll probably get angry letters. Dear sir, we read on. The search is being directed by Mr. Peter Byrne, a former professional hunter in Nepal, who has dropped a years-long effort to find the abominable snowman, or Yeti, to devote his time to trying to find Bigfoot. The tale of Bigfoot goes back more than 100 years, as far as the white man is concerned, and a great deal further in Indian legend. In the Dalles, Mr. Byrne operates out of the Bigfoot Information Center, a caravan over which flies the search's official flag, featuring a large footprint, of course. At the moment, he is operating on a shoestring, the entire operation being financed by admission fees to the Bigfoot display in the trailer, and a modest contribution from the Academy of Applied Science in Boston, which is also helping to finance the major search now underway for the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland. There is only one known photograph of Bigfoot, 8 meters of 16mm color movie film taken by 2 men at Bluff Creek, Northern California, on October 20, 1967. Of poor technical quality, it shows a large, hairy, upright walking figure which turns once to look at the camera and then disappears into the trees. There has been a great deal of controversy over the authenticity of the film, but Mr. Byrne believes it to be legitimate. Although most experts have been unwilling to examine it, apparently out of fear that a positive conclusion could damage their scientific reputation. What little technical examination has been conducted indicates that the film is genuine. And finally, from the Canberra Times, once again dated the 9th of July, 1985. Move over Lockie, here comes Bigfoot, Blackie, and Mokele Mbembe. Brighton, England, Monday, Reuters. The Loch Ness Monster has lost pride of place in the world of the cryptozoologist. Scientists are fervently chasing yetis and African dinosaurs to save them from extinction, if a symposium in Brighton organized by the International Society of Cryptozoology is anything to go by. An anthropologist from Washington State University, Dr. Grover Krantz, told the symposium yesterday that Bigfoot, North America's Yeti, could become extinct unless a very serious study of the animal was made.
I think it's important that a serious examination of the existing evidence be made,
Dr. Krantz, 53, said.
These animals are rather scarce. It's also possible that in our industrial civilization we are going to exterminate them in a very short time.
Dr. Krantz, who has spent the past 20 years on the trail of the creature, has in the past advocated the killing of one specimen to prove its existence.
If we do nothing, they may become extinct.
He said yesterday,
if we kill one, they might be saved.
If it were to have any chance against ravages on its environment, Bigfoot's existence had to be agreed upon by politicians and biologists. Bigfoot is believed to be a hominid, ape or man-like creature, over 2.5 meters tall, weighing more than 360 kilograms and covered with dark hair. Its habitat is said to be temperate forest. Dr. Krantz, who is anxious to persuade other scientists to take his theory seriously, identified the creature as Gigantopithecus blacki, Blacki, a prehistoric ape believed to have become extinct in China more than 500,000 years ago. He said there had been many reported sightings in various parts of the United States. He gave details and showed slides of plaster casts from 3 footprints found in the Blue Mountains of Oregon in 1982, 2 hours after the creature was spotted from a distance by a Forest Service patrol. He also showed a cast of a knuckle print from the creature taken in November. He said he planned to use infrared equipment and a helicopter to hunt for the remains of a dead Sasquatch. He hoped the equipment would enable him to detect the heat of decomposition. Meanwhile, another team of scientists headed by biochemist Roy Mackal of Chicago University is planning to plunge into deepest Africa next year to try and capture a living dinosaur. A 10-meter-long plant-eating beast with a long neck and tail, a body the size of a small elephant, and feet shaped like dinner plates.
We want a specimen alive.
Biochemist Roy Mackal of Chicago University told the symposium. The team, equipped with sonar devices, video cameras, and old-fashioned nets, would travel to an inhospitable region of largely unexplored swamp in the Congo to look for the creature, of which there had been many reported sightings.
It may be a dinosaur,
he said.
Here we are in an area which has not changed for 65 million years. If crocodilians could make it elsewhere for 60 million years, why not a small sauropod?
Brontosaurus and Diplodocus, or Diplodocus, were among the sauropods. Another team member, Mr. Richard Greenwell, said that if the scientists were unable to catch it, they at least hoped to tranquilize it and take small pieces of tissue from it for analysis. Dr. Mackal quoted reports of sightings dating back to a French missionary in 1776 and said a Congolese scientist had reported a sighting on an expedition in 1983. The Cryptozoology Society is dedicated to the hunt for unknown or supposedly extinct animals. Well, there we are. References to Bigfoot and other interesting animals, cryptozoology, and the state of Oregon in the archives of Australian newspapers. Now I wonder if there's a Bigfoot waiting for me outside of these studios, the Skeptoid studios. I'm going to stand up, walk over to the window here. Let me have a look. No Bigfoot today. No big feet. No Yetis, no Yowies. But you too can look for all sorts of things, including big feet, in the Trove archives when you visit Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, because when you go there, or if you come to Oregon, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and thank you to those wonderful people who support the Skeptic Zone at skepticzone.tv via Patreon or PayPal, and other sponsors who help me out. Coming up on next week's show, the Trove segment, we'll be looking at more UFOs because we can't get enough of those, or any, it seems. And once again, our friend Kat McLeod from Edmonton will be joining Adrian Hill. Stay tuned for that next week. But for this week, from Berkeley, California, this is Richard Saunders signing off.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
Hello to those people who listen after the music for the dice game. Yes, we're going to play it this week. Sometimes we don't. You know, sometimes the Easter egg... Oh, what's that term I heard recently? After party? An after party. Sometimes we don't have it. This week we do. I've got a 10-sided die here in a makeshift dice machine. A rattling machine. You'll hear it in a moment. This is where, just for fun, I roll a 10-sided die 3 times. And you, dear listener, use your psychic or mystical powers or just dumb luck to predict the number. Here we go. Number 1 coming up. First roll, I should say. And the number is 8. First number this week is 8. Okay. Here we go. Second number. And the second number looks like 1. 1, 8, and 1. Last number coming up. And it's come to rest on 9. 8, 1, and 9. And finally, the last number, or the supplementary, an extra number. I'm going to pop open the machine. There it is. Rattle, and... the last number is 4.